The plain stretched before them in a dark, crimson hue, with the occasional mountain peak rising sporadically and sparse trees dotting the barren landscape. From far away, faint and distant roars of beasts could be heard, giving the land an air of desolation. At that moment, atop a small hill on the northern edge of the plain, a lone figure stood, gazing up at the sky, which appeared tinged with red due to the Earth's own coloration. He then looked toward the horizon, but saw nothing beyond the vast expanse. So, this is the demon realm? Lin Dong murmured, taking in the wild, untamed landscape. This young man was indeed Lin Dong, having arrived through a spatial teleportation. They had traveled through the space channel for nearly 5 days before finally piercing through and landing in this unfamiliar place. Unfamiliar with this territory, Lin Dong wasn't sure if this was his intended destination. Given his previous teleportation mishap in the Eastern Mystery region, he still felt a lingering apprehension about long-distance spatial travel. Lin Dong surveyed his surroundings, then turned back with a slightly helpless expression, looking at the young girl lying unconscious on the ground. It seemed spatial teleportation was not something ordinary people could endure easily. He crouched beside Xin Qing, extending a finger to lightly pinch her delicate nose. Her slender eyebrows furrowed slightly, and eventually, her tightly closed eyes fluttered open. Her face flushed red as she scrambled back, her small hands pressing against the ground, stammering, Lin Dong, my lord." Seeing Xin Qing's startled reaction, Lin Dong scratched his head with an awkward smile. You wouldn't wake up, so I thought something might be wrong." "I am sorry," Xin Qing mumbled, her face reddening further. "It's all right." Lin Dong waved his hand dismissively, feeling a bit uncomfortable with the deference she showed him. Softening his tone, he added, "It looks like we've arrived in the demon realm. Can you tell where exactly we are?" Upon hearing this, Xin Qing quickly stood up and surveyed the crimson plain. After a moment, relief washed over her face, and a smile emerged. "My lord, we should be in the beast combat domain. The teleportation was accurate. This is where we were headed." Lin Dong breathed a sigh of relief and asked curiously, "The beast combat domain?" Xin Qing nodded and explained, "The demon realm is vast, divided into numerous regions, roughly organized into 4 main areas: East, West, South, and North. The beast combat domain, where we are now, lies at the junction between the Western and Northern regions. It's also known as one of the most chaotic areas in the demon realm." "Oh." Lin Dong raised an eyebrow. It sounded like they had landed in yet another headache-inducing place. In other regions of the demon realm, powers and territories are generally well-defined, with occasional friction between races. But here in the beast combat domain, conflicts are constant. Territory and resources are fought over, not by races, but by influential powerhouses with exceptional strength. Currently, the top leaders here are the 8 demon commanders, Xin Qing added after a brief pause. "The 8 demon commanders?" Lin Dong repeated, still clueless about the demon realm. Thankfully, Imo Luo had arranged for him to have a guide. The 8 demon commanders represent the 8 strongest factions in the beast combat domain. Each commander has achieved at least perfect completion of the Death Mystique stage, and they command many powerful subordinates. Their reputations are well known throughout the demon realm. In addition to the 8 demon commanders, numerous other factions, both large and small, vie for control here. It's common for wars to break out over territory and resources. Power can shift hands overnight. One faction might rule today, only to be wiped out or overthrown tomorrow. Relatively speaking, the 8 demon commanders hold the steadiest positions. Lin Dong nodded. This place truly embodied the law of the jungle, where the strong thrived and the weak perished. "So, how do we go about finding someone?" Lin Dong scratched his head. According to Qing Ji, little Yin should have been transported to this region as well. But with the vastness of this area, finding one person would be no easy feat. Xin Qing bit her lip thoughtfully before looking at Lin Dong with a tentative smile. "How about we head to my clan? The Ninetails clan's intelligence network might be more helpful than what I can provide on my own." Lin Dong had no objections. After all, The intelligence resources of a whole clan would indeed be more effective than relying on himself. Seeing his agreement, Xin Qing's face lit up with joy. She looked around to orient herself, then pointed northward. The Ninetails clan should be in that direction. Lindong didn't waste any time and waved his hand, saying, "All right, I'll let Lindong guide me." The young girl's face brightened with excitement, likely from the thought of returning to her clan. Her delicate figure darted forward, heading straight north, with Lindong closely following behind. Xin Qing, your Ninetails clan is pretty strong, right? Lindong asked, glancing around as they traveled, before directing his gaze back to the young girl beside him, who was diligently navigating their path. Upon hearing this, Xin Qing hesitated, her large eyes dimming slightly before she responded, somewhat apologetically, "Not really. The Ninetails clan is quite weak nowadays. Our clan leader, my mother, has only reached minor completion of the death mystique stage. In the beast combat domain, we can barely survive. We once relied on a major force for protection, but they demanded that we send 10 young maidens from our clan every year. We refused and fled to our current secluded location, but we paid a heavy price. 70 to 80% of our men, including my father, died fighting back." Lindong paused, looking at the girl beside him, whose eyes had reddened as she bit her lip. "I'm sorry," he said softly. Xin Qing shook her head, saying, "That's just how it is in the demon realm. I traveled all the way to the Flame Deity Palace because I want to become strong enough to protect my people when I return. You will succeed." Lindong was moved by the girl's quiet resilience, hidden beneath her timid exterior. He couldn't help but recall his own journey, driven by a similar desire to protect his loved ones. With a hint of bitterness, Xin Qing murmured, "I'm nowhere near as strong as you, Lindong. You've already reached minor completion of the death mystique stage, and even defeated opponents that Sister Xinlian and Lord Zhou couldn't handle." Lindong scratched his head, then chuckled, "Everyone just says I'm a bit of a monster." Xin Qing giggled, her red-rimmed eyes lightening up slightly. She glanced at Lindong, realizing that, despite his strength, he wasn't nearly as severe or unapproachable as she had assumed. "Lindong, you also have a friend from the Heavenly Demon Mink clan, don't you?" "Yes," Lindong nodded. "They're like brothers to me." "You're amazing, Lindong. Making friends with the Heavenly Demon Mink clan. Everyone fears them in the demon realm. Even the Dragon clan respects them," Xin Qing marveled. "They're that powerful?" Lindong was surprised. He knew they were strong but hadn't realized the extent. "Yes, the Heavenly Demon Mink clan is one of the 4 great ruling clans of the demonic beast realm." Xin Qing nodded enthusiastically. 4 ruling clans? Lindong felt somewhat helpless. It seemed he was entirely unfamiliar with the demonic beast realm. The demonic beast realm is ruled by 4 great clans and 8 royal clans. The 4 great clans are the Dragon clan, the 9 Phoenix clan, the Kuanpeng clan, and the Heavenly Demon Mink clan. They are the strongest bloodlines in the demonic beast realm. The 9 Phoenix clan and the Kuanpeng clan, Lindong murmured, noting the names. This was his first time hearing about them. Long ago, the Ninetails clan was powerful too. Back then, we could even go up against the Kuanping clan without being at a disadvantage, Xin Qing added, a trace of pride in her voice. "Oh." Lindong was genuinely surprised. He hadn't expected the now fragile Ninetails clan to have such a glorious past. After a devastating catastrophe in ancient times, the Ninetails clan suffered massive casualties. All our top experts perished. In the years that followed, fewer clan members reached the supreme nine-tail form, leading to our eventual decline. Xin Qing's tone softened. "I see." Lindong nodded, realizing that the more tails, the stronger a nine-tails clan member became. "So, Xin Qing, how many tails do you have?" He looked at her, smiling as he resisted the urge to glance at her lower back. "I have 3 tails," she said hesitantly. Her petite frame flickered with red light, and 3 fluffy tails emerged behind her. Lindong gazed curiously at the 3 soft, furry tails, unable to resist reaching out and touching one. To his surprise, the sensation was incredibly pleasant. Lindong, Xin Qing's face instantly turned a deep shade of red, her voice trembling as she struggled to speak. Seeing her reaction, Lin Dong was momentarily bewildered. "Tails aren't meant to be touched," she stammered, her face so flushed it looked like it could bleed. Realizing his faux pas, even Lin Dong's thick skin couldn't prevent his face from flushing. Quickly withdrawing his hand, he looked up, laughing awkwardly. "Ah, such a big moon tonight." Xin Qing watched as Lin Dong dashed off, seemingly trying to flee, and froze momentarily. She couldn't help but cover her mouth to stifle a laugh before quickly lowering her head, blushing, and hurrying after him. On the crimson plains, the setting sun hung low, casting a dark red glow over the land. Occasionally, large white bones would emerge from the ground, intensifying the sense of primal desolation. Whoosh! Suddenly, the sound of something slicing through the air echoed from above. Two figures flashed across the sky, Lin Dong and Xin Qing, rushing toward the Nine-Tails clan's territory. Master Lin Dong, the beast combat domain is chaotic. Although there are still some humans within the demon realm, this is ultimately the domain of demonic beasts. If we're seen, it may attract some unwanted attention, so we should keep a low profile on this journey, Xin Qing advised, her wide eyes scanning their surroundings with a trace of nervousness. Lin Dong smiled and nodded, but he showed no intention of slowing down. Seeing this, Xin Qing pursed her lips and chose not to press further, simply following him closely, all the while praying that nothing would go wrong. It seemed her prayers were effective, as their journey continued smoothly without any incidents. Although they occasionally encountered large groups passing by, raising clouds of yellow dust, those groups didn't seem to notice Lin Dong and Xin Qing, instead hurrying on with battle cries echoing behind them. During this journey, Lin Dong witnessed firsthand the chaos within the beast combat domain. In just half a day, he saw no less than 4 different factions clashing violently, the distant sounds of battle reverberating through the air. The sight was impressive. However, to Lin Dong, who had seen the disciplined, military-like formations of the Flame Deity Palace, these groups seemed no more than a disorderly mob. The commanders were clearly no match for Tang Xinlian, and the battles largely relied on individual strength rather than strategy. Lin Dong watched briefly before losing interest and continued onward with the visibly anxious Xin Qing. Time passed quickly as they traveled, and 2 days later, they drew closer to the Nine-Tails clan's territory. Under the setting sun, on the endless crimson plains, Lin Dong sat cross-legged beside a campfire. Xin Qing was busily kneeling by the fire, turning a stick in her small hands, upon which a hefty leg of wild boar was roasting. Golden drops of fat sizzled over the flames, releasing an aroma so enticing that Lin Dong couldn't help but be drawn in. Master Lin Dong. Xin Qing sliced off a piece of meat with a small knife, skewered it on a clean stick, and handed it to Lin Dong. Her thoughtful and caring manner made Lin Dong sigh inwardly. Such attentive care was a rare luxury for him. Among the girls he knew, he could hardly imagine someone like Ling Qingzhu doing this. She'd probably just draw her sword instead. Huan was treated like a princess in her sect. At most, she'd occasionally play a melody if she was in a good mood. Qing Tan was obedient, but he was often too busy training to spend time with her. As for Tang Xinlian, the commander of the 4 armies of the Flame Deity Palace, Lin Dong wouldn't dare ask her for such things. He'd probably end up full of arrows if he tried. And when it came to Mu Lingshan, he was usually the one taking care of that little troublemaker. Thinking of this, Lin Dong stared at the roast meat in his hand and shook his head. Not an easy life. I've told you many times, just call me Lin Dong. No need for master, Lin Dong said between mouthfuls, his voice slightly muffled. Xin Qing just smiled, but her respectful expression remained, leaving Lin Dong somewhat helpless as he gave up trying to convince her. Our Nine-Tails clan is located in the northwest of the Beast Combat Domain, right at the border between Thunder Abyss Mountain and 100 Beasts Ridge, Xin Qing said as she continued to share information about her clan. Thunder Abyss Mountain? 100 Beasts Ridge? Thunder Abyss Mountain and 100 Beasts Ridge are both powerful factions within the Beast Combat Domain. Their leaders are among the 8 demon commanders, Xin Qing explained. Our clan is caught between these 2 forces, and while they frequently clash, They don't bother us much as long as we offer an annual tribute for protection. The demon commanders of Thunder Abyss Mountain and 100 Beasts Ridge are both at the peak of the Death Mystique stage. They're incredibly powerful. One belongs to the Lion tribe, and the other to the Tiger tribe, though I'm not sure about their exact species. Tiger tribe? Lin Dong stopped mid-bite, his eyes widening as he looked at Xin Qing. I'm not entirely sure, Xin Qing pondered. But Lord Lin Dong's friend should have come to the beast combat domain over a year ago, whereas that demon commander from Thunder Abyss Mountain has been renowned here for quite some time. They're probably not the same person. Lin Dong nodded in agreement. Even if little Yin had this so-called rare physique, reaching perfect completion of the Death Mystique stage within a year seemed impossible. It looked like this search was going to take time. Just as he was about to speak, Lin Dong's expression shifted as he looked up. In the distance, clouds of yellow dust billowed, and faint laughter and jeering could be heard, carrying an unmistakably roguish air. Xin Qing's face grew tense as she noticed the approaching dust cloud. She waved her hand, scattering dirt to cover their campfire before looking anxiously at Lin Dong. Lord Lin Dong, maybe we should hide? Lin Dong shrugged, allowing Xin Qing to pull him away from the main path. The rumbling grew closer, and amidst the dust, Lin Dong glimpsed a flag with a blood-red serpent coiled around it, as if ready to leap from the banner. The sight of it radiated an intimidating aura. It's people from Blood Python City. Xin Qing's face paled as she recognized the flag. Lin Dong nodded. He'd heard her mention this faction before. Blood Python City was well known within the beast combat domain. Though it couldn't rival the power of the 8 demon commanders, it was still a formidable force. These people are notorious for plundering, utterly despicable. Lord Lin Dong, it's best if we don't cross paths with them, Xin Qing whispered. As she spoke, the unit surged along the plains road, and Lin Dong quickly estimated it to be a force of around 100, many of whom radiated menacing auras. At the forefront were 2 individuals whose power had reached the minor completion of the Death Mystique stage, suggesting that Blood Python City indeed wielded significant strength. The unit stormed past, though they seemed to notice Lin Dong and Xin Qing. Some flashed feral glances their way but refrained from attacking. Lin Dong remained composed, letting them scrutinize him, while Xin Qing clung to his sleeve, hiding behind him. Despite her young age, her delicate beauty was apparent, and she understood the potential danger if these men took notice of her. Haha, who's this young lad? Running off with someone's little lady, are we? As the group thundered past, someone laughed mockingly. Another extended a hand, and with a gust of wind, snatched the roasted meat from their spit, biting into it while laughing wildly as they rode off. Having already secured some spoils, they seemed disinclined to pursue Lin Dong and Xin Qing further. Watching them pass, Xin Qing exhaled with relief, though the crude voices of the riders drifted back faintly. We hit the jackpot this time. Those villages had better show some respect to Blood Python City from now on, or we'll wipe them out. Haha. Not to mention, we got 2 of those Ninetails clan girls. Heh, those beauties are exquisite. I've heard all Ninetails women are natural-born charmers. Shame we have to offer them to the city lord first. Don't get your hopes up. Those gems are way out of your league. The city lord always goes first. Of course, but maybe after he's done, he'll let us have some fun. The laughter echoed as they rode away, their vulgar voices lingering in the air. Lin Dong's eyes narrowed. Then he turned and saw Xin Qing's face, which had turned ghostly pale. Her eyes were fixed on the receding group, her cheeks flushed with anger and fear as her small hand trembled and released his sleeve. Are you all right? Lin Dong asked gently. Xin Qing shook her head, forcing a strained smile as she quickly gathered some items from the ground. When she straightened, she bit her lip and said, Lord Lin Dong, could we go to my clan first? There's something I have to take care of. Lin Dong looked at her and chuckled. Walking into the lion's den, are we? They'll suffer horribly. Her eyes filled with tears as she looked at him, pleading, Lord Lin Dong, please let me go. Seeing her tear-streaked face, Lin Dong sighed, extending a hand to tousle her hair. All right, let's go, my guide and little handmaid. Xin Qing looked up, her teary eyes gazing at the young man before her. His face beamed with a bright smile as she bit her lip, a fresh wave of tears shimmering in her eyes. "You're such a crybaby. I'm going now." Lin Dong smiled as he wiped away her tears, then turned away, his gaze narrowing toward the direction where the group had departed. "Just a bunch of irritating people. Taking my roasted meat?" Xin Qing stared blankly at Lin Dong's dissatisfied expression, and after a moment, the corners of her mouth couldn't help but drop into a slight smile. Her delicate face, clear and beautiful in the dimming light, now held a hint of allure. Night was falling, and a desolate plain stretched out ahead, interrupted only by a small, run-down town bustling with bonfires. This seemed to be a gathering place, as teams continuously arrived from various directions. The once quiet plain had become alive with noise and activity. This town, known as Little Wasteland Town, served as a resting point in the wilderness. Many forces that typically scoured the plains for prey would often stop here to rest, avoiding the occasional sudden sandstorm or icy fog that swept across the barren land. With so many groups gathered here, trading often ensued, exchanging coveted goods, though clashes were far more common. The demon realm was known for its chaos, and the beast combat domain took it a step further. An exchange of smiles in one moment could turn into a bloody battle the next. At one corner of town, a camp surrounded by the blood python banners was rowdy, echoing with coarse jeers that spread far and wide. In front of the camp was an open area where all manner of unsavory characters had gathered, their fluttering flags marking affiliations with different factions in the beast combat domain. Boasting voices filled the air, each group showing off their spoils from recent ventures. "PFF, you only defeated a stray bandit crew. We from Blood Python City wiped out 3 villages. Our loot puts yours to shame." A bare-armed man from Blood Python City listened to the others talk, then laughed proudly, his scar-laden face making him appear vicious and fierce. "PFF, all Blood Python City does is pick off weak villages. What real loot could you have?" A mocking voice interrupted from the side. The speaker, a thin man with a sneer, was flanked by a gang of men, clearly unfazed by the scarred man's intimidation. With a glint of malice in his eyes, the bare-armed man glared at the thin figure, but he held back, knowing his rival was no easy prey, and his backing was on par with Blood Python City. His eyes gleaming, the scarred man turned toward a large, brawny figure sitting on a rock. This giant of a man tore into a roasted leg, his bloodshot gaze lifting toward the thin man as he let out a chilling smile. "2 girls from the Ninetails clan. You think they're worth something?" The crowd erupted, eyes brightening. Girls from the Ninetails clan were renowned for their rare beauty, their allure unmatched and highly sought after. Seeing the men's reactions, the brawny man's grin widened. With a wave, the rumble of wagon wheels rolled out a cage holding 2 petite figures, huddled together, trembling. Their tear-streaked faces showed terror as they looked at the men's lecherous stares from behind the bars. Though the girls' faces were not fully visible, their curvaceous forms made the men's breaths grow heavier. "Heh, Brother Lejean, could you spare me one of those beauties?" The thin man licked his lips and held up a single finger. 1,000,000 Xin Yuan pills. How about it? The crowd murmured in shock at his bold offer of 1,000,000 pills. "Wang Ho, these girls are for my lord. You think you can enjoy them?" Lei Zhan, the brawny man, retorted with a sneer. At those words, the thin man's face faltered before he forced a laugh. The reputation of Blood Python City's lord was well known, and he wisely pulled back. Seeing his retreat, Lei Zhan gave a smug grin and motioned to have the cage rolled away. As Lei Zhan waved his hand, another voice suddenly laughed from above. Everyone looked up in surprise to see 2 figures standing atop a nearby tent, their forms dimly lit by the campfire. At the front, the speaker appeared to be a tall, lean young man. Lei Zhan frowned at the unexpected visitor, then sneered. "Fine, 10,000,000 Xin Yuan pills. Can you afford it?" Those nearby winced, thinking this was absurd. Sure, the girl from the Ninetails clan was valuable, but nowhere near that much. The youth atop the tent squatted down with a cheerful grin, saying, "Earlier, on the road, You stole my roasted meat. Maybe we could call it even with that 10 million Xin Yuan pills? The crowd's expressions grew stranger. What kind of meat could possibly be worth 10 million pills? Dragon meat? Or perhaps from the heavenly demon Mink clan? A few sharp-eyed bystanders, however, sensed a tension in the air, noticing this stranger's nonchalance despite being in the presence of Blood Python City's notorious gang. Did he even realize who they were? As the crowd watched, Lei Zhan and Hu Cheng's faces darkened, and behind them, their Blood Python City henchmen drew blades that gleamed with a deadly chill. Well, someone's here looking for trouble. Lei Zhan's sneer grew sinister. In his rush to pass by earlier, he'd barely noticed Lin Dong at the roadside, let alone expected him to approach them so boldly now. Today, I'll make sure you understand what it means to cross Blood Python City. Kill him, cut him up, and feed him to the dogs, Hu Lei snarled. Swish. As Hu Lei's voice echoed, the Blood Python City fighters charged, their powerful primordial energy bursting forth in a display of strength. The crowd backed off a bit, looking on with a mix of wariness and anticipation, curious about this young man who dared challenge the two death mystique stage warriors of Blood Python City. Lin Dong sighed as he watched the Blood Python City fighters charge with killing intent. Step back a little, he told Xin Qing. All right. Xin Qing nodded, unfazed. She had seen Lin Dong's ferocity before, in Blaze City, when he'd taken on Hua Chan and Su Xiao. This scene held little threat in comparison. As Xin Qing stepped back, Lin Dong's eyes hardened, growing cold. He raised a hand, and with a swift motion, unleashed an immense wave of primordial energy that coalesced into a giant spectral hand, sweeping forward with unstoppable force. Boom, boom, boom. A series of heavy impacts resounded as the charging fighters were thrown back in disarray, tumbling into their own ranks, sending Blood Python City's men sprawling. A death mystique stage warrior? The onlookers exchanged shocked glances, taken aback by the strength this young man possessed despite his youthful appearance. Lei Zhan and Hu Cheng's expressions shifted, their gazes darkening as they glared at Lin Dong. So, you've chosen to make an enemy of Blood Python City? Lin Dong met their gaze with a faint smile. He descended lightly from the tent, his eyes drifting to the prison cart where two delicate young girls were held captive. Hand them over. Lei Zhan and Hu Cheng exchanged grim looks, glancing towards the deeper parts of the camp. A cold glint of killing intent appeared in their eyes. Kill him. Both men's vast primordial energy flared out simultaneously as they lunged, their figures blurring like phantoms toward Lin Dong. Their bodies expanded, and razor-sharp bristles emerged from beneath their skin like armor. Lin Dong's face remained calm as he watched them close in. In the next instant, he lifted his foot and brought it down forcefully. Boom. It was as if the very air exploded. As splinters flew, every gaze quickly turned, pupils shrinking at the sight near the prison wagon. A young figure stood tall, his hands clamped firmly around the throats of two struggling men. No matter how fiercely they twisted and fought, his hands remained as unmoving as eagle claws. Gulp. A wave of throat-clearing sounds swept through the area, where powerful figures from various factions looked on in shock. In a mere instant, so fast that few had caught what happened, Lei Zhan and his comrade had been subdued. These were warriors at the minor completion of the Death Mystique stage, fighters any faction in the beast combat domain would welcome. Yet, here they were, rendered helpless in the youth's hands, like mere chicks. Some onlookers exchanged wary glances, muttering that Blood Python City seemed to have provoked someone formidable this time. Meanwhile, in the prison wagon, two Ninetails clan girls, witnessing the scene, shivered as they looked at the youth's calm expression, eyes pleading for salvation. With a casual flick, Lin Dong flung the two men away like garbage, sending them crashing into a nearby group. Dusting off his hands, he directed his gaze to the depths of the Blood Python encampment, his tone indifferent. I'm taking them. Are you going to stop me? The camp erupted into chaos as Blood Python City's warriors stared at Lei Zhan and his comrades' disheveled state, struggling to grasp how these two formidable men had crumbled so easily. At that moment, Xin Qing appeared, swiftly landing atop the prison wagon. As she caught sight of the two girls, her eyes lit up with surprise. Sister Qing, Sister Lu? Xin Qing? The two, shaken by their ordeal, stared in disbelief before relief filled their faces and tears began to well up. Lin Dong cast a brief glance at the three weeping girls, then turned his attention back to the camp's depths. There, he sensed a presence, a faint yet considerably stronger aura than Lei Zhan and his comrade. This was likely the real powerhouse among the blood python forces, one skilled in hiding, whom Lin Dong had only detected upon approaching the encampment. Around them, several bystanders looked toward the camp's depths in surprise, wondering if more formidable forces from Blood Python City were present. Could it be? Some murmured among themselves. Amid the converging gazes, a faintly rasping laugh echoed from the depths of the camp. In a blur, a figure cloaked in gray appeared before Blood Python's warriors. The newcomer had a pale face, sunken eyes, and a sharp, shadowed expression. His hands were unnaturally long and razor-like, veiled in a faint, pungent mist laced with poison. The little city lord of Blood Python City? Chao Meng, someone whispered. At his appearance, those around instinctively stepped back, even Blood Python's own warriors keeping a wary distance, faces tight with fear. Little city lord, Lei Zhan and his comrades scrambled to their feet, stumbling to Chao Meng's side. Xin Qing and the other two girls blanched at the sight of Chao Meng. For the two Ninetails clan girls, despair filled their eyes. Clearly, they hadn't anticipated facing someone so fearsome from Blood Python's ranks. Don't be afraid, Xin Qing murmured comfortingly. Chao Meng's reputation was indeed formidable, his power at the major completion of the Death Mystique stage, far stronger than Lei Zhan. Yet, in her mind, even this might not be enough to threaten Lin Dong. Seeing Xin Qing's composure, the two girls managed to calm slightly. They shot cautious glances at Lin Dong, sensing that her confidence stemmed from him. But could he really handle Chao Meng, a fighter at the major completion of the Death Mystique stage? I'm taking them, Lin Dong said, looking directly at Chao Meng with a faint smile, his tone almost polite, as if seeking confirmation. Yet, only those familiar with life on the edge could sense the chilling intent beneath his calm expression. A human like you dares to talk like this? Lei Zhan snarled. The effect didn't seem to be too strong. Although seeing a human act so arrogantly here was off-putting, Lin Dong's previous show of strength had definitely left the other demonic beasts wary. Lin Dong, however, paid no mind to him. Instead, he fixed his gaze on the pale-faced Chao Meng and chuckled. Your instincts seem quite sharp, so I assume you realize you don't have the means to stop me. The crowd's expressions shifted again, especially as they noted the darkening look on Chao Meng's face. Could this young man really be that powerful? Strong enough that even someone like Chao Meng, who had achieved major completion of the Death Mystique stage, couldn't stop him? You're making an enemy of Blood Python City. You'll regret this, Chao Meng said, his gaze as venomous as a snake's. Unfazed, Lin Dong waved at Xin Qing, then turned to leave. Xin Qing quickly pulled her two still-stunned companions to follow him. So bold. Won't you at least leave your name? Chao Meng's voice was cold. Let's see if Blood Python City should fear you. Lin Dong. Lin Dong paused briefly, threw Chao Meng a bright smile, and walked away without looking back. The surrounding demonic beast warriors quickly made way, watching the four leave with mixed expressions. Sir, Lei Zhan and the Blood Python City fighters watched Lin Dong and his group depart, their faces dark. Though Lin Dong's strength was undeniable, surely if they all joined forces, the brat wouldn't stand a chance? I couldn't defeat him alone, and even all of us together might not keep him here, Chao Meng replied icily, glancing at Lei Zhan. Is he really that strong? Lei Hu asked in disbelief. Chao Meng, after all, was a top-tier Death Mystique expert, while Lin Dong appeared only at the minor completion level. His strength couldn't possibly reach Chao Meng's. Are you questioning my perception? Chao Meng's gaze was sharp. Lei Hu broke into a cold sweat, immediately shaking his head. He knew Chao Meng's perception was indeed highly accurate. If it weren't for you two strutting around here, we wouldn't be in this mess. Chao Meng's voice dripped with scorn. Lei Zhan and Lei Hu stayed silent, heads bowed under his rebuke. So, what now? Everyone's watching. Soon, word will spread. Imagine our reputation if it gets out that a lone human walked off with people right from under our noses. One of the blood python fighters grumbled, clearly unwilling to let it go. Chow Meng watched Lin Dong's receding figure with a sinister grin. Blood Python City isn't so easily trifled with. He'll regret it. Anyone who crosses Blood Python City meets only one fate, death. I can't wait to see that brat begging on his knees. Far from the small, desolate city, in a forest, Lin Dong sat calmly by a campfire, smiling as he watched the three beautiful young women whispering together nearby. Amid their murmurs, Lin Dong caught occasional gasps of awe and admiration from the two nine-tail clan girls, glancing his way in awe as Xin Qing recounted stories about him. Leaning against a tree, Lin Dong gazed up at the night sky, soothed by the soft, gentle voices nearby. After a while, the exhausted nine-tail girls drifted into sleep, while Xin Qing tended to them briefly before approaching Lin Dong, holding a soft blanket. Kneeling beside him, her delicate face flushed, she whispered, "Thank you, Lin Dong." From her eyes, he saw a genuine gratitude. Previously, she had felt an uncertain mix of fear and respect toward him, but now, it had transformed into true reverence. Lin Dong waved it off with a smile, casting a glance at the two sleeping girls. While he had helped Xin Qing rescue her kin, he also had his own reasons for stepping in. As Qing Ji had mentioned, it was very likely that little Yin was somewhere in the beast combat domain. But searching such a vast region alone was impossible. So, he had to make his name known. If Lin Dong's name reached little Yin, he would surely understand. And when that time came, the brothers would finally reunite. Last night's events may have spread my name a little, but it's still far from enough. With that thought, Lin Dong smirked faintly. Blood Python City. We don't have any real enmity, but since you threw yourselves into my path, I have no choice but to make a sacrifice out of you. Over the next day, Lin Dong continued his journey under Xin Qing's guidance. However, to her confusion, Lin Dong, who had been pushing the pace to its limit over the past 2 days, had now deliberately slowed down. She didn't understand the reason but dared not question him, only following his instructions. While Lin Dong's group continued on their way, word of the recent events began to spread throughout the region. Although conflicts were constant in this beast combat domain, it was still quite rare for a human to provoke a demonic beast faction in such a place. The curiosity grew even stronger as more people learned about the situation in Blood Python City. Various parties turned their attention in this direction, anticipating the opening act of an entertaining drama. Hee hee. A girl's cheerful laughter echoed in the air, adding a touch of life to the otherwise monotonous journey. Xin Qing ran up a hill excitedly and waved to the group behind her. Just as she was about to speak, she suddenly sensed something amiss. Her face turned pale as she quickly looked up. Before her lay a vast plain, densely packed with troops. Amidst the army, blood-colored banners bearing the symbol of a python fluttered ominously in the wind, exuding a murderous aura. At the forefront of the army stood a blood throne. Leaning lazily against it was a man in a blood-red robe, his expression indifferent as he gazed at the figures on the hilltop. A cruel smile slowly curled up the corner of his lips. The dark mass of soldiers spread across the plain, the fluttering banners exuding a chilling aura. The ominous atmosphere even seemed to darken the sky, as if a storm was about to descend. The joyous expressions on Xin Qing and the other two girls' faces vanished, replaced by fear and terror. They recognized the army and realized that Blood Python City had come out in full force. Judging by the situation, it was clear that they were the targets of this grand mobilization. Hee hee, they really did come. As the three girls trembled, a young man behind them slowly stepped forward. He looked at the formidable display before them, a smile appearing on his youthful face. Lord Lin Dong, I'm so sorry. Xin Qing bit her lip as tears welled up in her large eyes. She knew this was all because she had asked Lin Dong to help rescue her two clan members. If anything happened to Lin Dong because of this, she would never forgive herself. The two Ninetails clan girls, pale-faced, were about to kneel in apology but Lin Dong waved his hand to stop them. This is exactly the situation I wanted. I did use you as bait, so there's no need for guilt. Lin Dong smiled and walked up to the top of the hill, his gaze scanning the gathered forces. The crowd consisted not only of people from Blood Python City, but also from other factions. In just 2 or 3 days, the news about him had spread remarkably fast. But that was precisely what he needed. A gust of wind swept across the plain, stirring up dust, but it did nothing to dispel the tense atmosphere. Is that the human who challenged Blood Python City? He's so young. I heard he's really strong. Even Chao Meng, the young city lord, admitted he was no match for him. But Chowing is here this time. He's a powerful figure who's nearly reached the perfect completion of the Death Mystique stage. It's said that at least 10 other powerful figures have died trying to reach that stage. And so many other experts from Blood Python City. This young human is indeed quite audacious. Audacious people don't live long. Countless eyes converged on the figure standing atop the hill. Whispered discussions spread among the crowd, and Lin Dong's recent exploits had been widely circulated in this area. It had been a long time since a human dared to act so boldly in the beast combat domain. You must be Lin Dong, the one who snatched people from my Blood Python City. Amidst the whispers, the blood-robed man at the front of the Blood Python army slowly raised his head. His triangular pupils stared at Lin Dong like a venomous serpent's gaze, and his cold voice spread through the air. And you must be the city lord of Blood Python City? Lin Dong's gaze met the blood-robed man's, and he smiled. You arrived later than I expected. Oh. The blood-robed man's eyes narrowed, and a hint of mockery appeared on his lips. You actually anticipated our arrival? Lin Dong smiled and extended his hand toward the 2 Nine-Tails clan girls, drawing them toward him with a burst of suction force. She's been marked by something your Blood Python City implanted. No matter where we go, she's never out of your detection range. Lin Dong casually toyed with the 2 blood-red snakes in his hand, his gaze turning cold before he clenched his fist, crushing them into a mist of blood, which he then discarded. You really thought these things would escape my detection? Seeing the blood snakes dissolve, the faces of the 2 girls from the Nine-Tails clan turned even paler, clearly realizing for the first time they'd been marked in such a way. The man in the blood-red robe watched as the blood snakes disintegrated in Lin Dong's hand, and his smile finally faded. Resting his palms on his knees, he leaned forward, his gaze turning sharp and dangerous, like a venomous snake ready to strike. So, you're saying you lured me out here on purpose? Lin Dong chuckled, neither confirming nor denying, and then said, Step aside. The man's eyes grew sinister, and he finally stood, sneering, Kid, I don't know where you came from, but this little act of yours does show some skill. However, at this point, a tremendous surge of primordial energy erupted from him, like a torrent unleashed. The force was far beyond mere completion of the Death Mystique stage. It even surpassed the strength of Hua Chun and Su Xiu. This man had already set half a foot into the realm of perfect completion of the Death Mystique stage. Think you can scare me off, boy? You're not even close. Today, none of you 4 will leave here alive. Lin Dong looked at the imposing Chowing and smiled. He stepped forward, walking through the air toward the Blood Python City forces. With each step, waves of powerful primordial energy surged like a tide behind him. If that's the case, let's fight. Lin Dong halted, stopping 1,000 feet from Chowing, and smirked. So, single combat, or are you all coming at me together? Brother, this guy is unusually cunning. Let's all attack him at once and finish him off, said Chao Meng, his gaze dark and apprehensive. His intuition, always sharp, detected something unsettling about Lin Dong. Chowing snorted. I know he's trying to provoke me, but what's a mere ant going to do? Chao Ying's sneer widened. Among the demonic beast clans, combat was revered, and power was everything. As the leader of his faction, he carried his own pride. While he valued victory above all else, he couldn't fathom that a human at the minor completion of the Death Mystique stage could challenge him. His confidence stemmed from a long history of success, one built on the corpses of 10 Death Mystique stage experts. Chao Meng hesitated, but said nothing further. His confidence in Qiao Ying was unwavering. After all, the man was a half-step into perfect completion of the Death Mystique stage, an elite level even across the beast combat domain. Though Lin Dong had an unusual aura, the idea of him toppling Qiao Ying seemed implausible, even to Qiao Meng. With a grim smile, Qiao Ying stepped forward. In a flash of blood-red light, he appeared in the sky in front of Lin Dong, summoning a massive blood-red spear. The weapon glinted ominously, its tip flickering like a serpent's tongue. Lin Dong faced Qiao Ying's immense aura, his palms slowly tightening. Wisps of lightning gathered in his hand, gradually forming a thunderous staff, faint rumbles of thunder echoing around him. On the plains below, countless eyes fixed on the two figures locked in their skyward standoff. Many were eager to see if this human, who'd made such a brazen appearance in the beast combat domain, was as formidable as he seemed or merely bluffing, as Qiao Ying claimed. In the demon realm, strength was venerated above all. Be you human or demonic beast, so long as you possessed power, you commanded respect. But mere bravado was worthless here. On a high ridge, Xin Qing and her two companions anxiously watched the confrontation above. The two girls from the Ninetales clan wore faces full of fear and worry, as if they were on the verge of tears. Xin Qing, that's Qiao Ying, the Lord of Blood Python City. They say he's close to reaching perfect completion of the Death Mystique stage. One girl whispered, her voice filled with dread. Perfect completion of the Death Mystique stage. This level was unfathomably powerful to them. Even the Ninetales clan's strongest member had only achieved minor completion, leagues below Qiao Ying. Don't worry. Lord Lin Dong once defeated a master at the Revolution stage. Even though it required combined efforts, that Qiao Ying is nowhere near as powerful as a Revolution stage expert. Xin Qing reassured, though a trace of concern lingered in her heart. Yet, showing it now wasn't an option. Someone who fought a Revolution stage expert. The two young women couldn't help but stare in astonishment. In their eyes, even Qiao Ying, with one foot at the peak of the Death Mystique stage, seemed nearly unbeatable. A master at the Revolution stage was almost legendary, a ruler within the demon realm, a being they could hardly fathom. And now, Xin Qing had claimed this seemingly young man in his 20s once bested such a formidable foe. Even if he had help, the feat was terrifying. Lord Lin Dong is really that powerful? The initial fear in their eyes softened slightly as they looked toward the sky, where a slender figure stood still, holding a thunder scepter, resolute as a mountain. Hope flickered in their gaze. Perhaps he truly could break them free from this deadly trap. In the sky, Lin Dong paid no attention to the countless watching eyes scattered across the mountain. His focus remained fixed on the snake spear-wielding Qiao Ying before him. After a moment, his lips curved slightly, and a spark of determination flickered in his dark eyes. Let my name be known, starting here.